"You really shouldn't be out here alone, sir. Not dressed like that in South Bronx at 3 in the morning." The man didn't reply. He hovered near the curb, shoulders bowed, rain pounding his tailored overcoat, his polished shoes slowly drowning in a grimy puddle at the broken edge of the sidewalk. Without warning, his knees buckled. He pitched forward, face first into the freezing, rain-slick asphalt. For a heartbeat, the street forgot to breathe. Across the way, 2 guys in dark hoodies lounged against the gate of a closed liquor store. One elbowed the other, nodding toward the fallen stranger, interest turning sharp. Their attention wasn't kind. They pushed off the wall and started crossing, steps lazy but intent clear. Lena Morales didn't hang around to discover their plans. She broke into a sprint, splashing through the gutter, heart thudding. "Sir, hey!" she called, dropping to her knees beside him as water soaked through her jeans. Up close, she saw he was older, early 60s maybe, salt at his temples, manicured nails, the kind of skin that didn't know night shifts. Rain streaked his face. A heavy watch clung to his wrist. His wallet lay half open nearby. "Come on," Lena muttered, glancing up. The 2 men were nearly there, closing in. "Not tonight," she hissed. Digging deep, she hooked her arms under his and hauled. He was dead weight at first, but his legs kicked just enough to stumble along as she dragged him toward the staff entrance of the Velvet Lantern Inn. He groaned, drunk and incoherent, feet scuffing tile as they slipped inside. The door thudded shut just as the strangers hit the sidewalk outside. Lena didn't look back. Fluorescent hallway lights buzzed overhead, casting jaundiced halos across worn tiles. She eased the man onto a bench near the laundry room. His head lolled, damp silver hair plastered to his forehead, breath rolling out thick with whiskey. Trying not to feel like a thief, Lena dug through his wallet for ID. Credit cards, metal and heavy. A gold-trimmed business card caught her eye. "Graham Whitfield," she read, blinking. "No way! That Graham Whitfield." "Jordan," she called toward the front desk, "can you check this?" The clerk hustled over, eyes widening. "You're kidding," he whispered. "That's him. That's really him." Lena's mind spun, but her hands didn't slow. She whipped out her phone and ordered a cab. "He's not sleeping this off in the break room, and I'm not letting some random rideshare scammer swipe his wallet while he's blackout." 15 minutes crawled by. A yellow cab finally rolled to the curb. Lena grabbed a crumpled 50 from her own wallet, folded it tight, and pressed it into the driver's hand before he could object. "Don't run his card. Just get him home. He's out of it." The driver studied her, then the man, then gave a short nod. She helped Graham into the back seat, his weight sagging heavily into her side, the kind of surrender that came when someone completely lost the wheel. As she buckled him in, he mumbled, "You're good people. Don't forget that. People like you, that's who counts." She said nothing, just shut the door gently. The cab vanished into mist, taillights glowing red through the fog. Inside, Lena stood in the lobby, letting the quiet settle around her. Her shoes squished, her hoodie clung, heavy and cold. The dusty wall clock behind the front desk now read 3:52 a.m. Another graveyard shift at the Velvet Lantern. Only somehow different. She trudged to the staff locker room, peeling off her soaked hoodie, wringing out the sleeves over a sink stained with old rust. She wasn't sure what had made her move tonight. Reflex, maybe. Or a stubborn refusal to let one more person sink while everybody else pretended they didn't see. Outside, the storm finally began to break. Above the brick and concrete of South Bronx, the first hints of dawn cracked the sky in pale streaks, subtle, steady, impossible to reverse. The following Thursday, right before the lunch rush, Lena stood at the bar, folding cocktail napkins into neat stacks as the front bell chimed. She didn't glance up at first. Probably Mr. Hanley, the regular who demanded extra lemon in his iced tea and tipped in coins like it hurt. "Excuse me," a smooth, measured voice said. Lena lifted her head, plastering on a polite smile, then froze. The man in the doorway was the one she'd dragged from the rain. Now he was razor-sharp. Tailored navy suit, shirt crisp, silver hair combed back, dark eyes alert and deliberate. No sign of the soaked mess she'd hauled into a cab. Authority wrapped him like another layer of fabric. Lena's fingers tightened around the napkin. "Looks like you're walking just fine. The cab did its job," she said. Graham stepped nearer, tone calm but edged. "The ride didn't save me that night." Lena folded her arms. "I didn't do anything special. Anybody decent would have helped." He scanned the quiet bar, then returned his gaze to her. "Then it's a tragedy no one else bothered," he replied. "I looked into you, Miss Morales." Lena's stomach dropped. "I'm sure you did," she said warily. "You left college at 20 to take care of your mother," he continued. "You've juggled 2, sometimes 3 jobs. You've basically run this place while the manager skimmed cash, and you've paid for guest damages from your own tips. You even covered my cab." Lena narrowed her eyes. "Sounds like you've built quite the file. Still feels like assumptions." "No," he said quietly. "Those are facts." Silence stretched between them. Then he pulled a slim leather folder from inside his jacket and laid it on the bar. "I own this property," he said simply. "Among others. This one, the Velvet Lantern, it's been on the chopping block. Underperforming, badly run, bleeding money, I was set to sell." Lena swallowed. "If you're here to fire me, you're overdressed." Graham's mouth twitched. "I'm not firing you. I'm offering you the deed." The napkin in her hand tore neatly down the middle. "Come again?" she blurted, louder than intended. He didn't flinch. "You're the only reason this place still breathes. The guests come back because of you. I reviewed the numbers, watched the cameras from that night. You didn't have to drag me off that street. You could have walked away like everyone else. People don't just hand over hotels," Lena said, voice tight. "Not to overworked waitresses in the Bronx. People don't usually rescue billionaires from bleeding out in the rain," he answered. She stared, caught between laughing and screaming. "So what is this, your grand redemption project?" His smile thinned. "This isn't penance, it's acknowledgement." "I'm not begging you for recognition," she shot back. "No," he said softly, "but you're owed it." The folder sat between them like something alive. Lena eyed it like it might explode. "I need time," she said at last. "Take it," Graham replied, nudging the folder toward her. "Everything's there. Transfer paperwork, debt relief, renovation funds. My attorney will walk you through every signature. And if I say no?" Lena asked. "Then I honor that," he said. "But I hope you won't." He turned toward the door, paused. "There's something about you, Lena. You don't wait for permission to do the right thing. That's rare." Then he left. Just like that, the lobby swallowed him. Lena stood rooted, surrounded by the careful not-looking of co-workers. Denise, the morning housekeeper, wiped the same section of counter for the 3rd time. "You gonna open that or just stare till it evaporates?" she muttered. "I don't even know what's inside," Lena said. "Girl, The universe just slid you a miracle, Denise replied. Might want to check if it's legit. Hours later, after wiping down tables and locking the front doors, Lena sat alone in the empty lobby, the folder heavy in her lap. Her phone screen glowed blank, no missed calls. Her mom's room at the care home was dark. The silence made the old walls hum. Lena flipped the folder open. Inside, documents lined up, stamped, signed, already processed. Legal transfers with her name printed where owners usually lived. A detailed ledger of hotel debts, most marked cleared by wire transfers from some thick-walled holding company. A renovation budget, staff training grants, all earmarked for her. At the back lay a handwritten note on thick stationery. You offered a stranger dignity. Let this return some to you. G.W. Lena pressed her palm flat over the page, throat tight. This was crazy, unreal. Yet the paper was solid beneath her hand. If it was real, everything was about to change. If you think someone like Lena deserves something this wild and good, hit that like button. And tell us, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments. You might be closer to someone sharing this story than you think. Lena didn't sleep, not really. She lay staring at the ceiling of her studio above the laundromat, folder open beside her. The air smelled like dryer sheets and bleach. Machines hummed below, coins rattling inside metal drums. A hotel? Her hotel? That couldn't be real. Nobody gave away power without strings knotted tightly around the gift. But the pages stayed stubbornly legitimate. Every signature notarized, every clause unexpectedly clean. Graham hadn't just dangled a dream. He'd already moved money, filed papers, set dominoes. Toppling! Lena picked up her phone and called the care home. Her mother's voice floated through, tired, raspy, but warm. Mija, it's 2 a.m. I know, Lena whispered. But what if something huge just happened? Like, impossible huge. Her mother gave a dry little laugh. You finally hit the lottery? Worse, Lena said, tears pressing hot. I think somebody just handed me a hotel. Silence stretched. Then her mother said, very quietly, well, damn. The next morning, Lena walked back into the Velvet Lantern. Not just as staff, but as its maybe future owner. The air felt heavier, charged. Even the dusty chandelier in the lobby seemed to sway with judgment. Jordan lifted his brows when she stepped behind the front desk. So, you crack that folder open? Yeah, she said. Oh, he breathed, giving a low whistle. So what now? Lena didn't answer. Instead, she pushed open the office door behind the lobby, a room she'd only glimpsed when Dennis, the previous manager, burst out trailing cigar smoke and unpaid invoices. The space reeked of stale tobacco and old coffee. Papers spilled from boxes. Broken chairs leaned against dented filing cabinets. A faded calendar from 2013 still clung to the wall, curling at the edges. Lena exhaled slowly and stepped inside. All day, she disappeared into that tomb of paper. She sorted files, cross-checked vendor accounts, dialed numbers listed on aging invoices. Some lines were dead. Others led to automated mazes and vague voices. Twice, she hung up mid-conversation when something felt off. By noon, she'd confirmed at least 3 companies on the books weren't real. Briarstone Capital had no tax record. Norwood Finance traced back to nothing but a mailbox in Delaware. One invoice billed thousands for HVAC diagnostics that never happened. This wasn't clutter. It was intentional chaos. At 3 p.m., Lena called the number for Graham's legal contact. Evelyn Cho speaking, came a calm, precise voice. This is Lena Morales, she said. You're handling the Velvet Lantern transfer. "Yes, Ms. Morales, everything's ready," Evelyn replied. "We're just waiting for your signature. Do you have questions?" "Just one," Lena said. "Why would anyone gift me a business drowning in phantom bills and ghost vendors?" A pause crackled down the line. "Mr. Whitfield believes in second chances," Evelyn answered. "He believes you can repair what others ruined. I'm not here to mop up some rich man's mess while he walks away clean," Lena said. "Then don't," Evelyn replied evenly. "Make it yours. Burn what needs burning. Rebuild the rest." That night, Lena stayed long after guests had settled. She pulled the crooked blinds closed, brewed another pot of bitter lobby coffee, and went back in. She spread every invoice she'd found across the office floor like evidence in a crime drama. Sticky notes marked repeating company names, suspicious amounts, ODD delivery dates. 3 names surfaced again and again: Briarstone Capital, Norwood Finance, Eastport Logistics, all billing thousands for services no one could confirm, all tied to Dennis's tenure. By midnight, her head pounded, but a pattern emerged. This wasn't sloppy bookkeeping, it was siphoning. Someone had been bleeding the Velvet Lantern dry for years, quietly, carefully. She dug out an old key she'd discovered jammed under a couch cushion and tried it on the rusted cabinet in the corner. The lock clicked. Inside sat dusty ledgers, handwritten. Lena grabbed one, flipping to a flagged page marked March. Laundry diversion. Lines of figures marched across the paper. Payments never entered into the hotel's digital system. Hundreds, sometimes thousands, routed to names that didn't appear anywhere else. Fake contracts, mirror invoices. Her pulse spiked. This was laundering. Lena leaned back, grip tightening on the book's edges. Her hands trembled. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jordan slid across the screen. "Hey, heads up." Some guy in a suit came by earlier asking about the new owner. Said he's an old friend of Dennis. No card. Whole vibe felt off. Lena didn't text back. She shut the ledger, slipped it into her bag, and locked the others away. Morning found her in the office again, voice level as she called Evelyn. "Did you or Mr. Whitfield ever examine Dennis's financials before the transfer?" she asked. Another long pause. "No," Evelyn said. He was advised to disengage. Mr. Whitfield didn't want the baggage. "Well," Lena replied, staring at the cabinet, "he might have dropped more than a hotel in my lap. I think someone used this place to wash money, and I don't think they're done." "I'll inform Mr. Whitfield," Evelyn said. "But be careful. People who design schemes like that hate daylight." Lena hung up, palm pressed flat against cold metal. This wasn't just a promotion. It was a war zone. By late afternoon, she called an impromptu staff meeting in the lobby. The chandelier flickered overhead, but nobody joked this time. 12 employees circled her. Line cooks, housekeepers, night clerks, eyes wary, waiting. "I need to level with you," she began. "I think the Velvet Lantern was used for more than guests and bad conference coffee. Some of our vendors, they aren't real. Money went somewhere else." Silence dropped thick. Denise's jaw clenched. Rosa stared at the floor. "You think Dennis was in on it?" Jordan asked. "I don't know yet," Lena answered. "But I do know this. If we build on top of this without clearing it out, we're stacking fresh paint over mold." Denise spoke first. "So, what do you need?" Lena looked around at them. Not corporate fixers, not investigators, just her people. "I need your memories," she said. "Anything." Dennis said that sounded weird. Deliveries that came late at night. Folks who never checked in but always met with him. "Write it down. Tell me," Denise nodded. Got you. Rosa lifted her hand shyly. There was this guy a while back, she said, called himself Mr. V. Slick, black BMW, always late. He said they were planning expansions, but he never stayed in a room. I didn't trust him. Lena's shoulders stiffened. Mr. V, another shadow for the board. That night, the office lights burned again. Lena sat surrounded by files, laptop open. She typed every name, matched addresses, chased down P.O. boxes and dead websites in silence. Down in some forgotten forum thread, under a whistleblower article, she found it. Briarstone is a front. Watch who's behind it, the guy with the initials, VK. Lena's heart hammered. She screenshot the thread, saved links, cataloged everything into a folder on her desktop labeled simply Proof. She didn't know how deep this ran yet, but she'd finally found the rot. Now she intended to carve it out. 2 nights later, Lena stood behind the reception desk pretending to shuffle reservation cards while she watched the glass entrance. The lobby was mostly quiet. Only the hum of a tired vending machine and occasional groan from upstairs pipes breaking the stillness. Denise had gone home. Rosa was sweeping the 3rd-floor hallway. Jordan worked numbers in the back. Lena waited. 42 p.m. The doors swung open. He walked in like the place already belonged to him. Tall, smooth, perfectly put together. Charcoal suit, wristwatch glinting, cologne reaching her before his words did. Evening, he said, smile carefully curated. Lena stepped out from behind the desk. We're fully booked, she replied. He chuckled. Relax, I'm not here for a room. Just wanted to see what all the chatter's about. She didn't answer. He drifted closer, gaze sweeping the lobby. You've made upgrades, softer lighting, friendlier layout. I approve. Do we know each other? Lena asked. He leaned on the counter, letting silence stretch. Call me Victor, he said. Her throat went dry. VK. He slid a sleek black card from his pocket and placed it on the desk. No number. Just his name and a gold 5 embossed in the corner. Lena didn't touch it. Victor's smile sharpened. You've been busy, he murmured. Calling vendors who preferred to remain discreet. Digging up old ledgers. Poking around in systems most people pretend they never saw. I'm trying to run a hotel, Lena answered. No, he said, eyes narrowing. You're trying to play detective in a story you don't comprehend. You're right, she said coolly. I don't understand why somebody like you would show up in person unless there's something worth hiding. His jaw ticked just once. You're clever, he said, but clever doesn't equal safe. The air seemed to thin. Victor straightened. Walk away, Miss Morales. Enjoy the gift. Repaint the lobby. Bake your cookies. Host your little conferences, but stop trailing ghosts. You're not built for what lives behind them. Lena's voice dropped. You don't scare me. You should be, he replied. Then, with a brief nod, he turned and left. No shoving, no shouting. Just quiet threat wrapped in wool and steel. Lena stood frozen until the chime on the door went silent. Then she moved. She strode straight into the office. Jordan looked up, startled. Everything okay? No, she said. Call Denise. Tell her we're changing every lock tomorrow. Front, back, storage, laundry. And I want the security system live before the weekend. Was that him? Jordan asked. She nodded once. Victor Kade was just here. His eyes went round. What did he want? To shake me, she said. Later, at her kitchen table, Lena opened the ledger again, laptop glowing beside it. She dug into public records and shell company filings, tracing connections until her eyes burned. She followed addresses bouncing between holding companies, matched board members, cross-checked obscure LLCs. Slowly, a map formed. Victor Kade held stakes in multiple hospitality portfolios along the East Coast through a firm called Westline Strategies. Briarstone, Norwood, Eastport. They all curled back toward him like fingers. He'd been washing millions through places like the Velvet Lantern. On paper, the properties barely scraped by. In reality, they were sluice gates, and Lena had shoved a wrench in his pipeline. She copied every document, screenshot, and link to a secure USB drive. Then she slid her chair back, chest tight, and stared at the tiny piece of metal on the table. If anything happened to her, these files needed to outlive her. She grabbed an envelope from a drawer, the cheap kind she used for rent. Her hands still smelled of cleaning spray and old paper. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, another night soundtrack in the Bronx. She picked up a pen, hesitated, then exhaled. Lena slid the USB drive inside, listening to it tap against the envelope's corners. She took one last look at the open ledger, pages dense with numbers that suddenly meant danger instead of boredom. This wasn't the life she'd imagined when she dropped out of school to care for her mother. It was bigger, riskier. But this was hers now. Hotel, mess, enemies and all. She sealed the flap, pressing the glue down with her thumb until it stuck. In the humming quiet of her tiny kitchen, she understood something clearly. You don't get miracles without responsibilities. You don't pull wolves from shadows without expecting teeth. The machines downstairs rumbled into a fresh spin cycle, the floor trembling faintly under her bare feet. Lena glanced toward the window, where the city glowed in scattered orange and blue. Somewhere out there, men like Victor believed regular people stayed frightened and small. She wasn't interested in playing her assigned role anymore. She picked up the envelope again, weighing it. Proof, ammunition. A line she couldn't uncross. She thought about her staff, Denise's tired jokes, Rosa's shy nods, Jordan's nervous spreadsheets. They hadn't signed up for this. But if she backed down now, the same people who drained this place dry would keep doing it elsewhere. Lena grabbed a marker from the junk drawer, its cap chewed and cracked. She clicked it open and hovered over the envelope. Whoever ended up holding this would need to understand exactly what it was. Not a bill, not a love letter, a fuse, a warning, a map of everything someone wanted buried. Her hand shook slightly as she lowered the tip to the paper. She thought about Graham, about the night in the rain, about every time life had told her to shrink and she'd refused. Maybe he'd meant to give her a business. Instead, he'd given her a battlefield. Lena set her jaw. The marker squeaked softly as she wrote, the letters big and unmistakable. Not a paragraph, not an explanation, just a single word that would tell anyone who opened it to proceed carefully, to understand this envelope carried weight. Ink bled slightly into the cheap paper as she finished the last stroke. She capped the marker, slid it aside, and stared at what she'd written. Then Lena tucked the envelope into the back of her cabinet, behind a stack of old takeout menus, the word on the front facing out where only the brave would look. Evidence. Insurance. As extra backup, Lena moved the envelope from her cabinet to the loose plank beneath her bed, sliding it deep into the dark gap. The following morning, the blowback started. At 8, the walk-in freezer died again, every box inside oozing, spoiled, completely ruined. By 9:30, a fire inspector appeared without warning, clipboard in hand, eyebrows already raised. He cited them for 3 violations, including one extinguishing unit that had passed testing barely 3 weeks earlier. At 11:15, a delivery truck slammed the loading dock, cracking concrete and demolishing 2 garbage bins. The driver swore the brakes slipped. Maybe not. By 2 that afternoon, Lena's hands trembled while she filled out insurance paperwork at the lobby desk. Denise sat across from her, arms locked tight over her chest. "This isn't random," she said flatly. Lena didn't disagree. "Yeah," Lena answered softly. "I know." Denise leaned in. "So what's the move?" Lena stared at the forms, then at the scuffed lobby tile. "We hold the line," she said. That night, she gathered the staff and told them enough of the truth to understand the stakes. "That man who came by," she said, thinking of Victor's cold smile. "He's not here to make deals. He's here to intimidate. And when bullies feel you pushing back, they hit harder." Miguel muttered, "We could lose everything." "We might," Lena admitted. "If we stay quiet, we lose more." Jordan asked the question hanging between them. "So, what are you going to do?" Lena met his eyes, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. Tell the truth. That weekend, she dialed the one person she'd avoided so far, Graham Whitfield. When he answered, he sounded worn, older. "Mr. Whitfield, you gifted me this hotel," she said. "Did you know what came attached?" Silence stretched across the line. "I had suspicions," he admitted finally, "and I convinced myself it wasn't my problem anymore. I never meant for you to get dragged into this." "But I am," Lena replied. "So I need to know," she continued. "Are you going to help this time, or disappear again?" Graham released a slow, heavy breath. "Tell me everything." So she did. Every file, every shell company, every late-night visitor. When she finished, there was no room left for excuses. Only decision. "I'll call someone I actually trust," Graham said. "Someone who doesn't owe Victor a single favor." Lena closed her eyes. "Good, because I'm not backing down." Outside, wind chased trash along the South Bronx sidewalks. Lena opened the front doors and stood there, watching the sky darken, feeling pressure building. The storm was gathering. This time, she wouldn't be standing alone. 3 days later, Lena sat across from a woman in a navy trench coat, a press badge clipped near her collar. They occupied a corner booth in a nearly empty diner in Mott Haven, far enough from the Lantern House, close enough that Lena could walk back if things went sideways. The reporter stirred her tea slowly, studying Lena over the rim. "I read your emails, listened to your voicemail 3 times. What you're holding isn't small." "I know," Lena said, voice even. "That's why I came directly. I needed someone with teeth." The woman nodded once. "Names Rachel Vega, investigative reporter, Bronx Herald, 4 major exposés, 3 lawsuits, 2 council members booted from office. I don't scare easy." "Good," Lena replied, sliding a flash drive across the table. "This isn't just corrupt, it's industrial." Rachel didn't immediately touch it. "You realize if I publish this, fallout won't stop with Victor," Rachel said quietly. "If these laundering threads are real, they'll drag down banks, partners, maybe people you actually like." Lena's jaw tightened. "If they're dirty, let them fall." Rachel watched her, then picked up the drive. "All right, buckle up." Back at the Lantern House, something in the air changed. The petty sabotage stopped. No surprise inspectors, no mysteriously busted equipment. But the quiet felt worse, like standing on shore while a massive wave built just out of sight. Every creak upstairs made Lena jump. Every unexpected knock spiked her pulse. Jordan started staying late most nights just in case. Denise kept a bat leaned behind the laundry room door. Jenny insisted on walking Lena to her car, even though it was only 4 blocks. Through it all, Lena worked. She digitized records, installed real cameras, and ripped out crooked vendor accounts. She rebuilt a clean supply chain from scratch. She even slapped a handwritten label on the office door. Operations Center. It wasn't about sounding important. It was about naming what the room had become, the nerve center of their pushback. Every night she checked her phone, waiting for word from Rachel. Then, one evening, the text finally came. It's happening. Sunday morning, front page. Lena forgot how to breathe for 10 whole seconds. The piece hit like a grenade. Headline: Neighborhood hotel at center of multi-million-dollar laundering ring. Fraud network tied to prominent hospitality financier. Rachel hadn't tiptoed. She printed names. She mapped connections. She included screenshots of invoices, diagrams of offshore transfers, and a photo of one of Dennis's handwritten ledgers linking straight to a company controlled by Victor. The story tore across the internet. By mid-morning, Lena's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News anchors, bloggers, podcast hosts, former guests. Some just wanted a quote. Others wanted to book a room and ask if the famous peach cobbler still existed. Then came the detectives. 2 unmarked sedans rolled up after noon. Lena watched from the front desk as 2 plainclothes officers entered, one flashing a badge. "We're looking for Lena Morales." "That's me," she said, keeping her tone calm. They escorted her to the back office. They were courteous, but all business. "What made you start digging through the vendor accounts?" one asked. "Because none of it lined up," she answered, "and because too many people assumed I'd never question anything." "What made you store all this instead of deleting it?" another pressed. "Because I knew someone would eventually ask," Lena replied. They requested copies of her evidence. She handed over duplicate flash drives, described Victor's visit, and placed his black card on the desk. They took notes on everything, meticulous. By the time they left, nearly the entire staff had drifted into the lobby, pretending to dust or straighten brochures while watching through the window. Lena stepped out, lifted her voice. "I'm not the one in trouble," she said, "but the people who turned this hotel into their crime scene are." A collective breath released, as if someone had finally cracked a window. That night, Lena met Rachel again at the same diner booth, nursing a decaf coffee while adrenaline still buzzed under her skin. "You handled it like a veteran," Rachel said. "Not bad for someone who just wanted stability." "Technically, I was a server a month ago," Lena answered wryly. Rachel smirked. "Not anymore." Lena stared into her cup. "I only wanted a place my mom could be proud to visit. I didn't volunteer to topple an interstate fraud network." Rachel leaned back. "Nobody volunteers. The moment finds you. You either stand up or you watch it pass." Lena turned that line over on the walk home. The night was strangely quiet. No sirens wailing nearby, no arguments on the corner. Just the city breathing. She paused beneath the Lantern House sign, watching the bulb above it. Flicker once, then steady. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. Jordan looked up from the front desk. "They just ran the story on Channel 7, he said. "Your picture, your name, everything." Jenny leaned over the stair rail. "You looked strong on TV," she called. Lena exhaled. "I looked terrified." "Same difference," Jordan grinned. Later, after the staff drifted home, Lena sat alone in the dining room by the front windows, watching traffic lights change. She opened a new note on her phone. tomorrow. 1. Start legal paperwork to rebrand the hotel. 2. Draft job posting for a security officer. 3. Order new exterior signage. 4. Call Mom. She hesitated, then typed another line. 5. Remember to breathe. She set the phone down and leaned back, finally letting herself sink into the quiet. She wasn't at the finish line, not even close, but she'd turned a corner. The road ahead was messy, and hers. A week after the article detonated, Lena stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching contractors unbolt the old velvet lantern-in sign from its rusted bracket. The faded gold letters squealed as they came down. Curious neighbors lingered on the sidewalk. It felt like more than metal coming loose. The new sign waited nearby, wrapped in a white canvas tarp. Lena hadn't revealed the new name to Jordan or Denise, not even to Jenny. She wanted the reveal to land like a promise. Inside, the place thrummed. Foot traffic had doubled. Local shops dropped off flyers, asking to collaborate. People from across the borough booked stays just to see the hotel that pushed back. News outlets still called daily, but Lena had started ignoring most of them. She wasn't chasing headlines, she was chasing repair. Inside, the front desk gleamed with fresh paint and framed photos of South Bronx landmarks. The once stale lobby now smelled of Polish and cinnamon from Denise's homemade pastries. But Lena knew new decor didn't erase old rot. Renaming meant nothing if the foundation hadn't truly changed. That's why she'd finally agreed to see Graham again. He wanted to help quietly. She'd demanded he show up. He arrived without fanfare, stepping from a town car parked at the far end of the lot. No entourage, no cameras. Lena met him halfway. Graham looked thinner, older. The slick billionaire Polish was replaced by a navy sweater and dark slacks. "Lena," he said softly. She nodded. "Mr. Whitfield." They stood there in the parking lot, the canvas-wrapped sign fluttering behind them. "You did what I should have done years ago," he said. "No," she replied, arms crossed. "I did what you were too scared to finish." He flinched, but didn't protest. Lena gestured toward the building. "I cleared it out. The records, the staff, the ghosts," she said. "But I didn't do it alone." "I read the follow-up," Graham answered. "Rachel's second piece. You gave the hotel back to the block." "No," Lena said. "I finally gave it to myself." His eyes flicked toward the shrouded sign. "New name?" Lena stepped over, lifting one corner of the canvas just enough for him to see the fresh lettering. He blinked, then smiled. "Fitting," he murmured. "You can stay for the unveiling," she said, "but no speeches." "No speeches," he agreed. They walked toward the entrance together, drawing curious glances from inside. Denise spotted them through the glass and nearly dropped her clipboard. Jenny elbowed Jordan, whispering something that made him choke on his coffee. "Still causing commotion just by showing up," Lena said under her breath. "Some habits die hard," Graham replied. Inside, they held a small gathering. Staff, regulars, a few neighbors. Lena climbed onto a low step stool near the front, hands gripping the edge of the canvas draped over the sign. Her voice didn't need a microphone. "Thank you for holding the line with me," she said. "This building's weathered storms, but you've been the anchors. This renaming is a declaration." She stepped down and nodded to Denise. Together, they yanked the canvas free. The new sign gleamed in brushed bronze, the Lantern House. Below, in smaller script, "A place to belong." Applause rolled through the lobby, tentative at first, then full. Some guests whooped. Denise dabbed her eyes, blaming allergies. Graham clapped from the back but stayed out of the spotlight. When the crowd thinned, he approached the desk. "I brought something," he said, offering a manila envelope. "What is it?" Lena asked. "Final transfer documents. This time, the land too. No leases, no tricks." Her heartbeat quickened as she skimmed. Titles, deeds, full release. Clean, unconditional. "I don't want anything else hanging over you," Graham said. "Not from me. Not from before." For the first time, Lena saw not just the man who'd handed her a disaster, but someone trying, awkwardly, to repair it. "Thank you," she said. "Goodbye, Lena," he answered. He left without another speech. That night, Lena walked each hallway of the Lantern House. Every floor carried a different scent. Coffee and newsprint on one, lemon cleaner on another. She knew every sound now. The creak near 307, the vending machine's wheeze, the elevator's soft thunk when it finally behaved. She paused outside room 206, the so-called haunted room, and smiled. No more ghosts here. Back in the office, she opened a fresh notebook labeled Phase 2. Inside were sketches. Rooftop garden, after-school reading room, community library. On the first page she'd written, "We don't just run a hotel, we hold doors." She closed the notebook and set it on the desk. Outside, the new sign glowed steady. No flicker, no shadows, just a lantern burning for whoever needed it. Another month slid by, and the Lantern House wasn't merely surviving, it was thriving. Locals started calling it the block's heartbeat, half joking, half serious. The front steps were rarely empty now. An older man worked his crossword over coffee each morning. School kids finished homework at the patio tables. Miss Rosa from the flower shop sometimes played dominoes with Denise. The Lantern House had become something surprising, a second home. People didn't realize they needed. Inside, the lobby smelled of pine and citrus polish. The velvet chairs were reupholstered in deep green. Soft jazz drifted from speakers Jenny installed with her brother, recently back from college. A community board near the elevator listed events: Sunday poetry, Wednesday book club, Friday open mic, and weekend tournaments. One Saturday morning, Lena stood in the middle of it all, coffee in hand, watching a little boy feed quarters into the snack machine with a grin too big for his face. She remembered being his age, clinging to her mother's hand in bus stations, wishing someone would actually see them. Now she was the one building a space where people were seen. Denise walked by carrying a tray of biscuits. "You look like you're either about to cry or adopt a puppy," she teased. Lena smiled. "Depends how good those smell." "Peach and cinnamon," Denise said. "Like your mom used to." Lena blinked. "How do you know that?" "Because you mention her whenever you're tired, overwhelmed, or stubborn, which is often," Denise said. They laughed. That evening, as the sun slid low and lobby lights warmed on, something unexpected appeared. A letter, hand-delivered. Jordan brought it over, face pale, hands tight. "Some guy dropped this off," he said. Didn't say a word, just nodded and left. The envelope was thick, black, with no return address, Lena's name written in precise silver script. She opened it slowly. Inside, one sheet. "You may think you've won. You've embarrassed powerful people. Attention isn't protection. Some debts don't vanish, they wait, no signature." Lena sat down hard, the words buzzing like fluorescent lights. It had been so quiet, she'd almost believed the danger was over. She didn't panic or scream. She walked to the office, opened the hidden compartment beneath the bottom drawer, and breathed. Inside sat copies of every invoice, ledger scan, and contact summary. She slipped the letter into a new folder labeled simply Threats. Then she picked up her phone. "Rachel," she said when the reporter answered, "I think someone's still watching." Morning brought Rachel to the Lantern House with camera and notebook. She read the letter twice before folding it into her bag. "Classic intimidation language," Rachel said. "But it's real. They're testing your nerves." "I'm not backing off," Lena replied, gaze unwavering. Rachel tilted her head. "You know you're not obligated to keep pushing, right? You exposed them. Arrests were made. You've already done more than most." Lena's voice was soft but firm. "And yet someone still thinks they can silence me." Rachel's eyes sharpened. "Then we go louder." That week, she wrote a third feature, not about the crime, but about Lena, titled The Woman Who Turned a Hotel into Haven. It told the story of healing instead of scandal, the rebirth of a neglected building, the regulars who came back, the kids dancing in the lobby on weekends, the elders holding bingo in the old ballroom. The piece went viral, but more importantly, it traveled through the Bronx like word-of-mouth lightning. Donations flowed from former residents now living across the country. Alumni from the high school down the street volunteered to paint murals. A retired judge who'd grown up 5 blocks away mailed a check with a note for the woman who reminded this neighborhood of its worth. At the center, Lena. The threats stopped, or maybe they simply slid deeper underground. Either way, Lena refused complacency. She added motion-activated lights around the property, partnered with a neighborhood safety patrol for nighttime walks, and, at Jordan's suggestion, started weekend self-defense classes, not from fear, but to feel planted in her own body again. One evening, after closing, Lena stepped outside with a mug of chamomile tea and sat on the front steps. The air was cool, crickets buzzing under street noise. Across the way, the corner bodega flipped off its neon sign. A young mother pushed a stroller past and nodded. Lena nodded back. A black sedan eased up to the curb. Lena straightened, heart ticking faster, until the rear door opened and an older woman stepped out. Silver hair swept back, moving carefully with a cane. She wore elegance like memory, not armor. "You must be Lena," the woman said. "I am," Lena replied. "My name is Victor Kade," the woman said. Lena froze. "Kade?" "Yes," Vivian continued. "Victor's mother." Lena's fingers tightened around her mug. "I'm not here to defend him. He made his choices. But I've read what you uncovered and I've seen what you're building." Lena said nothing. Vivian's eyes shimmered. Complicated. "Victor wasn't born cruel," she said softly. "He learned power too fast and without guardrails. I couldn't pull him back. But maybe people like you can stop the next him." She drew a small velvet pouch from her coat. "This was my late husband's. He was an architect, built homes here. I believe he'd want this to support what you're doing." She pressed the pouch into Lena's palm and turned to leave. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a note. "Rebuilding is harder than destroying, but in your hands I believe it will last." Lena stood on the steps, stunned. For the first time in weeks, Lena didn't feel like someone merely surviving a fight. She felt like a builder. Later, she stood at the window of room 301, one of the few with a sliver of skyline view. Dusk turned the Bronx lights into a scattered constellation beneath her. The floor had been refinished just last week. The new curtains swayed gently, and the faint scent of lemonwood clung to the air. But it wasn't the decor that drew her upstairs. This room had once held chaos. Contracts signed in secret, deals whispered. Now it was empty, waiting for better stories. Downstairs, the grand room thrummed with music. Tonight was the Lantern House's first community gala, a celebration of survival and renewal. Local restaurants had donated food. Musicians played jazz near the fireplace. Families filled the space with laughter. Kids in too big jackets and sparkly shoes chased each other between tables, squealing. Lena insisted the event be free. "We already paid for it," she'd said, "with every overnight shift, every scar, every story." As she descended the stairs, she heard Denise shout from the lobby, "Lena, if you don't come claim this peach cobbler, I'm eating it for you." Laughter rippled around them. On stage, Lena took the mic. "No big speech," she said, "just gratitude." She repeated her mother's line about people overlooking this neighborhood, then vowed this lantern was theirs. Later, on the steps, she told Denise about a Lantern Legacy Scholarship. Whatever tomorrow brought, she felt ready to face it. Character shows up when nobody's watching. If you've lived past 65, you've seen how the world works when the lights are off. You know the difference between good manners and true decency. That rainy night in the South Bronx, around 3:10 a.m., cold water running down the curb like it had a grudge. Lena Morales didn't have an audience. No applause. No camera crew. No reward promised. Just a man in a tailored coat collapsing, face first onto wet asphalt, and two strangers in hoodies moving in like they'd done it before. Lena didn't stop to debate whether he deserved help. She didn't ask if he was rich, rude, or reckless. She saw a human being about to get swallowed by the dark, and she ran. Some folks call that instinct. Older folks often call it something else, upbringing. Up close, the man smelled like whiskey and money. Those heavy cards, that expensive watch, the kind of wallet that usually stays far away from puddles. Lena could have backed off. She could have told herself, "Not my problem." That's the line people use when they don't want the burden of conscience. But she hauled him inside the Velvet Lantern Inn anyway, soaked to the bone, and paid a cab driver cash so nobody could swipe his credit card while he was unconscious. Then he came back days later, clean suit, calm voice, eyes sharp, and placed a leather folder on the bar like a loaded question. He'd looked into her life the way powerful people sometimes do, not with curiosity, but with control. Yet what he offered wasn't control. It was acknowledgement. He told her the truth out loud. She had been carrying that place on her back. And when she braced for punishment, he offered her the deed. Now, here's the part older Americans understand better than most. Blessings can be real and still be complicated. A gift can be honest and still come wrapped in consequences. Lena didn't just inherit a building. She inherited years of rot hidden behind invoices and fake vendors, names that didn't exist, bills for work never done, money siphoned off like a slow leak no one bothered to fix because it wasn't dripping into their sink. And that's the lesson. Character isn't proven when life is easy. It's proven when you're tired, wet, underpaid, and alone, and you still choose to pull someone out of the street. When you take ownership, the wolves notice. A lot of people dream about finally getting ahead, but very few talk about what happens when you do, and the wrong eyes turn toward you. The moment Lena stepped into that back office, stale smoke, broken chairs, paperwork piled like a warning, she did something that separates survivors from rebuilders. She started asking questions. She checked vendor accounts. She called numbers. She followed threads that didn't want to be pulled. Then Victor showed up, not with shouting, not with a scene. With cologne and a calm smile and a black card that didn't need a phone number, because men like that don't expect to be called, they expect to be obeyed. He told her to stop digging. He suggested she enjoy the gift and stay in her lane, as if her lane was small enough to cage her. If you've lived through enough decades, you recognize that kind of threat. It's the polished version of the same message bullies have always used. Be grateful, be quiet, don't make trouble. But Lena had already learned something on graveyard shifts that many wealthy people never learn. If you let fear run the schedule, fear becomes the manager. So she changed the locks. She upgraded security. She copied records. She turned her office into an operations center. And she told her staff enough truth to keep them alert without drowning them in panic. And notice this. It wasn't the billionaire who formed the backbone of her defense. It was Denise keeping a bat by the laundry door, Jordan staying late, Rosa remembering the late-night visitor with the BMW, the so-called regular people who don't get headlines but who hold a line when a building starts shaking. That's a lesson for anyone over 65 who has watched neighborhoods rise, fall, and rise again. Community isn't a slogan, it's a shield. And when you decide to stand up, you don't just face the problem. You reveal who's been feeding off the silence. Truth is a match. Once lit, it spreads. Lena didn't beat Victor by swinging fists. She beat him with paper, patterns, and persistence. She traced shell companies the way some folks trace family trees. She saved receipts. She treated every invoice like evidence, because it was. Then she made the hardest decision. She took the story public. She didn't choose a flashy influencer or a gossip site. She chose a reporter with a track record, Rachel Vega, someone who understood that publishing truth can cost you, and you do it anyway because silence costs more. When that front-page story landed, it didn't just embarrass Victor. It triggered consequences, investigators, unmarked cars, questions that finally had teeth. Older Americans know this rhythm. You've seen it in labor fights, civil rights fights, corruption scandals, and church scandals. First comes the whisper. Then comes the threat. Then comes the exposure. And after exposure, there's a moment of dangerous calm. Because the system, like a wounded animal, pauses before it decides whether to run or attack. Lena understood that calm wasn't safety, so she rebuilt. She rebranded the hotel into the Lantern House, a place to belong. Not as a marketing trick, but as a declaration. This place would no longer be used to hide damage. It would be used to hold doors open. And when threats returned in a black envelope, she didn't crumble. She filed it. She documented it. She went louder again, not just about crime, but about healing. She made herself harder to erase by tying her story to her neighborhood's story. That's the final lesson. The truth doesn't always protect you, but it does something powerful. It recruits allies. It turns private fear into shared resolve. It transforms me versus them into us together. For anyone over 65 watching this, Lena's story isn't a fairy tale. It's a reminder. Dignity is never outdated. Courage doesn't belong to the young. And sometimes the most lasting legacy you leave isn't money. It's the moment you refuse to look away. After Lena pulled a stranger out of the rain and ended up facing a whole laundering network, it raises a real question for all of us. Have you ever had a moment where doing the right thing came with a cost, and you had to decide whether to stand firm or step back? I'd love to hear your story and your wisdom in the comments, especially if you've lived long enough to know how hard-earned courage can be. If this message spoke to you, please hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs hope and backbone today. Where are you watching from?